Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're studying for the Life in the UK test, this video is just for you. Today, we are diving into one of the most important and honestly one of the most shocking moments in British history, the Black Death. But we are not just going to list out dry facts. This is all about helping you understand the why behind the events, not just memorizing the what. That way, when you're answering those questions on the test, you'll be doing it with real confidence. Now, before we get into it, here's what I recommend. First, read the chapter in the official handbook. Get the basic idea of what happened. And come back to this video to really lock in your understanding and connect the dots. And if you find this helpful, don't forget to share it with anyone else who's preparing too. Alright, let's get into it. To understand the Black Death, we have to imagine life before it hit. Let's go back to the 1300s, medieval Britain. It's a completely different world. No electricity, no cars, no modern medicine. Most people are peasants, living in small villages, working the land every day just to survive. They live under a system called feudalism, kind of like a big social ladder, with the king at the very top and the peasants all the way at the bottom. The king gives land to his lords and nobles in return for military service. Then those nobles give smaller portions of land to knights or local landowners, and in return, those people provide men for the army or pay taxes. At the bottom of the chain are the people who actually work the land, the peasants and the serfs. Most peasants didn't actually own the land they worked on. They were considered tied to the land, meaning they couldn't just pack up and move to another village or start a new life somewhere else. They had a small bit of land to grow their own food, but in return, they had to work for their local lord, and they didn't have much say in the matter. This system wasn't just in England. In southern Scotland, it was similar. In the north of Scotland and in Ireland, land was controlled by powerful families known as clans. Then, everything changed. In 1348, something terrible arrived in Britain. It was a disease, a plague, likely a form of what we now know as the bubonic plague. No one knew how it spread, and there was no way to treat it. People would get sudden fevers, swellings called buboes, and within days many would die. It was terrifying. Imagine people dropping dead in the streets, entire families disappearing, and no one understanding why. This was the Black Death. The scale of the disaster was unlike anything Britain had ever experienced. It's estimated that 1/3 of England's population died. Think about that for a second. 1 out of every 3 people. In Scotland and Wales, the numbers were similar. Some villages were completely wiped out. People died so quickly, there weren't enough living people to bury the dead. In Ireland, the Black Death hit particularly hard in a place called the Pale. That's the area around Dublin controlled by the English. So many people died there that English control in the region became weaker for a time. But here's where it gets really interesting. As horrible as the Black Death was, it also caused massive changes in British society, and these changes would shape the country for centuries to come. Because so many people died, there were far fewer workers. This meant landowners couldn't find enough people to farm their fields. At the same time, with fewer mouths to feed, there was less need to grow as much cereal or grain. Suddenly, peasants who once had no power became essential. Their labor was in high demand. So what did they do? They started to demand higher wages, and in many cases, they got them. Imagine you're a landowner in 1350. Half your workers are gone. The ones who are left say, "We'll work for you, but only if you pay us more." You don't have much of a choice. Either you pay, or your crops don't get harvested. This started to shake up the entire feudal system. For the first time, peasants realized they had bargaining power. Some even left their villages to look for better work in towns. That might not sound like a big deal today, but back then, it was revolutionary. Moving away from your lord's land was just frowned upon. It was against the law. But now, with the social order broken, people started taking chances and looking for better lives. And this led to something else, the growth of towns and cities. As people moved into urban areas, trade began to flourish. New markets opened, people started new types of work, not just farming. This helped create a new middle class, shopkeepers, skilled workers, and merchants who weren't noble by birth, weren't peasants either. Among them were landowners, who weren't part of the old nobility, but still owned large areas of land. These people came to be known as the gentry, a new class between peasants and nobles. So in a strange way, The Black Death did more than just kill. It transformed. It shattered the old feudal system. It made room for new kinds of people and new kinds of opportunities. It helped lay the foundation for a more modern society, where people could, over time, move between social classes. If all this is feeling kind of familiar, think about what happened in our own world after COVID-19. A huge crisis hit. People lost jobs, businesses changed, remote work took over, and suddenly society shifted. In a similar way, though on a much bigger and deadlier scale, the Black Death forced medieval society to rethink how it functioned. It wasn't a change anyone wanted, but it brought about new possibilities. And that's why this topic is in the Life in the UK test. It's not just about memorizing a date or a name of a disease. It's about understanding how crisis leads to change, how society responds when everything turns upside down, and how those changes help shape modern Britain. So let's do a quick mental recap. Before the Black Death, Britain was a feudal society. The king granted land to nobles, and peasants worked that land with very little freedom. And the plague arrived in 1348 and killed about 1/3 of the population. With fewer people, there were fewer workers, and those workers began demanding better conditions. This broke the rigid social structure, allowed peasants to move and earn wages, and gave rise to new classes like the gentry and the middle class. Towns grew, wealth changed hands. The seeds of a more flexible modern society were planted. If you can hold on to that basic story, how a disaster led to major social change, then you've understood not just the facts, but the meaning behind them. And that's what's really going to help you on the test. Thanks so much for watching. If this video helped you understand the Black Death more clearly, give it a like and subscribe for more. And don't forget, read the chapter first, then watch the video to really lock it in. And if you know someone else preparing for the test, share this with them too. You've got this. Good luck with your studying, and I'll see you in the next video.